Our Sheil Kapadia is here. He is the host of the Philly Special on The Ringer, a host of the Ringer NFL show. He's a Philly guy. My producers and he, all of whom are Philly guys, just did Philly talk. Sheil, is Philly the biggest city in America where you guys all freak out if you're from the same town? Because no one does this with like New York or LA, even Chicago. It starts at Philadelphia, where if the accent is registered, you guys can just go for an hour.
Yeah, the accent was registered there. And I think you're right. It's what, the fifth, sixth biggest city in America. But once I found out the producers from Norristown, I start dropping, golf, where we play golf there and all kinds of things. I got so excited, I almost didn't want to start the pod, but I thought that would be rude if we told you to just give us 10 more minutes there.
All right. I wanna say this. So I had this thought this morning, and then one of my producers, Philly guy Miles Patola, texted me to remind me I hadn't forgotten that this time last year we did this exact same episode, very similar episodes, and you talked about how the Seahawks had the best defense, and then you ranked their offense shockingly high, like 6 or 7. And I remember going on a little bit of a rant and saying, "Man, am I sleeping on the Seahawks? Am I way off here?" And well, I didn't think they were going to go 2-15, but I wasn't thinking about them as the kind of team that was going to have the highest pressure rate in the history of the Super Bowl against Drake May. Didn't have that registered, and I didn't have Jackson Smith and Jigba as maybe the best player in football, and Sam Darnold being able to take care of the ball, and Kenneth Walker getting a huge free agent contract, and all of the stuff we saw. Gray Zabel, everybody. You nailed it, buddy. You know ball. Congratulations.
Well, I nailed it on their defense. The offense, I was not as high on. Maybe we talked about the ceiling type thing, but when I did my rankings, the offense I did not have high. I was wrong about their offense. The defense I did nail. I had them as the best defense in the NFL going into last season, but I didn't think they were good enough to get to the Super Bowl last year, so I don't want to take too much credit.
No.
The way the offense played, the way the scheme fit, that surprised me, but yeah, it's been a weird last 2 seasons where it's just like these defenses are incredible and the offenses are good enough, it feels like.
So this actually reminds me a little bit of one of these years I went on Rich Eisen's show right after my camp tour. And I said the Bengals are going to be better than people thought. And that was the year they went to the Super Bowl. And what ended up happening, Sheil, is that was twisted by like Cincinnati people, because I was the only person saying they might were going to be pretty good, into like Kevin Clark predicted they would be in the Super Bowl. And I didn't correct them. And then
so
I found
I should
out,
have just taken the compliment. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're just like, I'm Mr. Bengals. I mean, I thought they were going to like 9 games. I think I said 10. Yeah. But then I found out that I went on Cincinnati radio the next year, and this hadn't crossed my desk. One of the Cincinnati radio guys was like, we all made fun of you. Like, we played sound on our show because you were the guy saying the Bengals were going to be good. And so I felt I earned that semi-untruth that I predicted the Bengals to make the Super Bowl in the preseason.
See, that's nice. You have nice friends. I went on Seattle radio and they just ignored what I said about the defense and was like, you gave them a C in the off season and you didn't think the offense was going to work. So maybe you treat people better than I do and they, build you up a little bit. Whereas my quote unquote friends, they just, tear me down in public settings.
Yeah, that's true. I do treat people better. No, if anybody knows, Sheil's like the nicest guy, and he knows ball. He's one of my favorite media members. I'm so happy that he's at the Ringer, and then we got to work together for about 6 months.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
What a beautiful 6 months that was until I left.
It was.
Right, It was beautiful. All right, so we're doing most loaded rosters, and the reason we do this, Sheil, is because you do your top offense and your top defense right around now. And I think a lot of times that's a worthy exercise because as we're talking about with the Seahawks, one team is one on one side of the ball and the other team is like, oh, wow, hey, that's the 8th best roster on offense. It's a Super Bowl team. It's a healthy exercise to go through it. So I think it's high time. It's August 18th as we record this. It's high time to go through these loaded rosters and figure out who can win the Super Bowl. So without further ado, we asked each of us to bring 5. You start. Your number 5 most loaded roster, Sheil, is whom?
Oh, I like this. The countdown. Okay. I've got the Detroit Lions, Kevin, and they are a team that I'm looking at real hard where I'm going, all right, when do I have to make my Super Bowl prediction? Am I going to go a little outside the box and not pick the Rams or the Seahawks and go with the Lions? Because the offensive skill positions are fantastic. Defensively, you have 2 All-Pros in the front 7 with Aiden Hutchinson and Jack Campbell. You have 2 very good safeties who might not play lot of football this year. That's what's kind of holding me back a little bit with Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. But I think last year, they finished 9-8, and everyone's like, "Oh man, Lions, big step back." The advanced stats on them are so freaking good. I mean, they were top 10 if you look at DVOA
Yep.
in offense, defense, and special teams. The only other team in the NFL to do that was the Seahawks. So I still think there's a lot of talent on this roster. And yeah, I felt pretty good about having them in my top 5.
I also have the Detroit Lions in my top 5. They're number 4. Uh,
Okay.
you mentioned it. The one thing you don't go broke on in this, I don't know how you view this, but I've changed my mind on this in the last couple years. I used to, because I was Patriots pilled, go, oh, you have to have 1 through 46 on game day, the best roster, because of the way the Patriots managed it and how they robbed Peter to pay Paul. And it's, we have great linebackers and you don't have weak links, right? Like almost like college football. You can't have any weak links. And some parts of that are carry over. The offensive line, you can't have any weak links. Cornerbacks, you can't have any true weak
Yeah.
links, but you can scheme around it. But the last couple of years, I've come to realize the way you win in football, because the guys, the average, the VORP, right? The guys you get off the street, the replacement player, is really good in the NFL. Von Miller is available. Von Miller had 9 sacks, and he was signed yesterday, right? Keenan Allen just signed. That's the replacement player. And I, he can get, I know they're third down specialists and all that stuff, but those are still good players. And so what I'm saying is a long way to say, I think you win with premium talent, blue chip players, and then you can get away with other stuff. Now, there's a couple things you can't get away with. Again, you can't get away with an awful offensive line, and you can't get away with one unit being like 25th and above in the league. But pretty much anything else, you can kind of put airplane tape on and say, we're going to land this plane. And with the Lions in particular, Goff is a premium talent. I don't care what anybody says. Jahmyr Gibbs, premium talent. Amon-Ra St. Brown, premium talent. Jameson Williams has the chance to do it. Sam Laporta, I think, is a blue chipper. Penei Sewell. I'm worried about the Cade Mays injury, obviously.
Yeah.
Aiden Hutchinson is probably right now the only healthy blue chipper. We'll see what happens with the safeties on defense. But all in all, I go through it, and I've did on my camp tour. I ask the beat writers when I'm sitting on the sideline, hey, rank the best players on this team. And oftentimes, the beat writer is at a loss to name 4 or 5
Find
guys.
5 people. Yeah.
Yeah. And in Detroit, it's too many guys. And then in some of the other teams, it's too many guys. But Detroit doesn't have that problem. They're number 4 for me.
Yeah, I think you laid it out well. I mean, if they underachieve this year, it'll be what you were saying, where like the secondary will be just too much to overcome. It's one place where you lost Terry and Arnold, you have injuries at safety, and maybe it'll be like, all right, they kind of couldn't find that replacement level play there. And then the other one is the offensive line. I think in previous years, we probably would have said, we would have might have led with that, when we're talking about the Lions' talent. Like, well, they got a top 5 offensive line. They're great there. And now they've had this transition period where they're relying on these younger players, and that's got to come through for them also. But yeah, I think overall, and this was good. This was good doing this exercise, because I've been like on the fence about, how far am I going to pick the Lions? But it's like, all right, if I'm sitting here and I still have them as a top 5 roster, and I think they've got the second easiest schedule in the NFL, just when you look at like projected Super Bowl odds, like that's a pretty good formula for a team that certainly could win 11-ish, 12-ish type games and be a factor in the NFC.
Number 5, nobody get mad at me. Number 5 for me was the Seahawks. I know they just won the Super Bowl, but
They're
we're
4
doing
for me.
loaded
We're
rosters.
on the same page.
Yeah. We're doing loaded rosters. And I love, by the way, having the 5th best roster is really good. And you can win the Super Bowl with it. I'm not saying they can't win the Super Bowl with it, but quarterback is a part of it. Jared Goff is better than Sam Darnold. But then obviously, let's go through it. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Gray Zabel, Leonard Williams. I just thought DeMarcus Lawrence is his last season, but he's still really, really, really good. Devin Witherspoon just got his extension the other day, and it was really cool to see that. Nick Manwari. I was wrong on Nick Manwari. I thought coming out of the draft, I thought Malachi Starks was going to be who Nick Manwari ended up being as far as being an impact safety off the board. Manwari is more versatile. I also thought a lot of times, Sheil, those guys who are really, really, really athletic and the tape doesn't necessarily show up in the SEC, like in Worry, those guys to me usually take 2 or 3 years in the system. And maybe that's Mike McDonald being a genius or whatever, or maybe that's him and Worry being better than I thought, or maybe it was South Carolina being not the best place to develop talent on the planet. I don't know. There's a lot. I'm not trying to do an SEC show, Sheil. I
Yeah.
keep seeing NFL prospects from South Carolina, and then I keep seeing South Carolina not win a bunch of games. And I just think there might be something going on there. Because even this year with Dylan Stewart, everybody's like, Dylan Stewart is going to be a top 5 pick. Oh, well, is South Carolina be good? Oh, heavens no. Heavens no. No. They're not going to be good. Don't worry about that. So let's not do SEC talk. But I'm just going to throw that out there. Nick gave me more premium talent. But where do you have the Seahawks?
Yeah, I have them 4. So we have the same 4 and 5. And, whenever a team even gets to the Super Bowl, but especially wins the Super Bowl, you have to do the exercise of like, who's number 1 on your list of who we're giving credit to for this? I think 2 years ago for the Eagles, I think everyone would have been like, Howie Roseman. He just put together a great roster. Maybe some would have said Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator. The year before that, whenever the Chiefs won, it was like, this is easy. It's Mahomes and Andy Reid. They deserve, they're going to deserve a lot of the credit. For the Seahawks last year, I do think it was tricky because I do think John Schneider did a good job. You just named a bunch of good players. I do look at that roster, and to your replacement player thing, if you handed that to a replacement level coach, the exact same roster, I actually don't think that there's 8 coaches in the NFL who would have had them winning the Super Bowl. Maybe there's 3, maybe there's 5, but I think it's a pretty short list. So I look at that, and especially the players on defense who these are good players, but anyone could have gotten DeMarcus Lawrence. Josh Jobe was a starting corner for them. Anybody could have had Josh Jobe. Julian Love, very good safety. Anybody could have signed Julian Love. Ernest Jones was just going, team by team, everybody. So the fact that the defensive coach had such a
Cooper
great
Kupp.
plan.
Cooper Kupp was off the street.
Cooper Kupp, had such a plan and a vision for here's how I'm going to use these guys. Trust me, it's going to work. That to me is the number one reason. So I think it's almost like a feather in Mike McDonald's cap versus any you're dogging on the Seahawks. I just think it was such an unbelievable coaching job. That's why I had them maybe a little bit lower than some of these other teams, just in terms of pure talent on the roster.
You're an owner, you buy a team, congratulations. And you get to pick your coach. McVay or Mike McDonald or somebody else.
Okay, let me ask you, I hate to ask follow-up questions to hypotheticals like these, but am I guaranteed McVay's going to want to coach for a while, or is there a chance he could do a little dance to join you on ESPN in a year?
He's committed. He's committed and energized.
He's committed?
Both guys are committed and energized.
I think it's very difficult. I think I would still lean McVay by a hair, just because I feel like my offense is going to be good regardless of collection of talent. And I think he's shown he'll try to find a defensive coordinator. I think McDonald has a harder job finding the OC, who then might leave, by the way, which just happened last year, where now that's a question mark. McVay might not have to worry about that. Go find a crusty old defensive coordinator who no owner wants to hire, and he can be your guy for 5 to 10 years. I know he's not doing that right now, but he could potentially do that. So I think McVay, just a little bit of a longer track record, I would go with him.
Who's third?
Oh my gosh, who's third? Good question. Okay, let me look at this here.
Because it's between 2 guys for me. It's Kevin O'Connell and Kyle Shanahan.
So you're still total all in on Kevin O'Connell. I think this is a referendum year for Kevin O'Connell.
I think it is, but last year was a disaster, but I still think he's got an amazing playbook. And I think that JJ McCarthy was the aberration, not anything else. I think JJ McCarthy was uniquely bad.
Because I would say this.
Kyle Shanahan.
Because I would say this. If you just switch places, those 2 guys this year, and you said, Shanahan, you're coaching this Vikings roster with this quarterback, and Brian Flores is your DC, I think a lot more people would be picking them as a sleepery pick in the NFC. So I'm not saying O'Connell's bad. I do think I need to see him win 10 games and at least get to the playoffs with this Vikings team, because you could make the case that the greatest move O'Connell's made is just he can work with Brian Flores and wasn't afraid to hire him as the DC. So I think I would go Shanahan. Listen, Ben Johnson has my attention.
I was literally about to say there's probably Bears fans screaming at their phone right now.
Yeah. Sean Payton probably has my
Yeah.
attention a little bit, so I
I
think
need to
those are
see
probably
Sean
the
Payton
next
not in
guys.
play caller mode, which is one of the most underrated storylines of the entire offseason.
And there's no answer to it. I
No.
read the stories about, "Oh, you didn't wanna lose Davis Webb." I'm like, Sean Payton has, like, the biggest ego of any coach of the
Yeah.
last 25 years, and he's a great coach, but I can't see him being like, "I can't live without Davis Webb. I have to give up play calling duties." It still is a head scratcher to me.
Seems fake. Seems a
Like
little
he's gonna
fake.
take it back in, like, week 4 or something.
Or week
Yeah,
1. Yeah.
week 1.
Halftime of week 1. All right, sorry, we're getting off track here.
Yeah.
So we have the same 4 and 5. Who's your number 3?
I have the Eagles at
Yeah.
number 3.
Yeah.
I think the defense is just loaded. Like, I went to a couple of training camp practices, and I'm just like, "This is crazy who they have in the front 7 and, who their cornerbacks are," and it's like, is this do could they have 2 of the best 10 linebackers in the NFL by the end of the year if Jahad Campbell has a good year? So, the big thing about them defensively is that all these guys are, like, between 23 and 27 years old. I mean, that's so
Yep.
unusual where you're not predicting, well, this guy could fall off this year because he's 33. They're all so young. Howie Roseman's just been on a heater, specifically on defense. And then you could pick some nits on the offense. I don't know that the line's going to bounce back in a big way. Devontae Smith to me is a definite blue chipper, but I kind of look around like I think Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback. Saquon Barkley is very good, but running backs at this age, I have some questions about. So last year, it would have been a lot easier. Guys are younger. You have AJ Brown. This year, offensively, I'm curious to see kind of the match of talent and scheme and how that plays out. But I don't have them as like a top 10 offense. So I'm a little more skeptical about what the offense might look like.
So, one of the reasons I do this exercise, I'm a big believer in just roster talent winning, and as long as you have a quarterback and a coach who are not bozos, you're gonna win 12 games, 13 games if you have a top 5 roster. All Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts have proven is that they can make and win a Super Bowl. So either you're saying that they have the greatest roster in the history of football, and that's why they're able to win the Super Bowl. Howie Roseman is the best general manager of football. But there's no argument to be made that Sirianni and Jalen Hurts are not capable with this roster of winning the Super Bowl. They're obviously capable, and they've become both in their own right underrated. Okay. And I switched my pick in the NFC East Shield because I went to Eagles practice. And I'm looking at this roster, and I'm like, oh, there are 9 guys on this team who'd be the second best player on a bunch of contenders. And you're looking at Quinyon Mitchell. You're looking at Jalen Carter. You're looking at, again, we mentioned
Cooper
on this
DeJean.
Cooper
Yeah.
DeJean, Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson. I don't know if Cooper DeJean would be the second best player on a contender, but he'd be up there. These are good
Yeah.
players. Saquon Barkley, Devontae
Yeah.
Smith, the other linemen like Jordan Davis is a big body who can move. There's just so much. Jalen Hunt is developing every single game. It seems like Zach Bond. These guys on the open market would get unlimited amounts of money, feeding frenzy, and they're there in Philadelphia, and everything about the operation has become underrated because of the way that they're discussed. And I don't know what it is about Philadelphia where everything becomes a panic at all times. But if they were in another city, if they were in Jacksonville, people would just be like, oh, they're a machine and they're probably going to compete for a Super Bowl again. But
Yeah.
for whatever reason, the Eagles are discussed in a way where everything seems to be teetering on the edge at every point. And I went to practice. I didn't see that. I saw a really talented team running a new offense. It seems it can be better for Jalen Hurts. And I don't like the way the team is being discussed right now nationally.
Well, there's always drama, and obviously people, the fan base and the media, and that's part of it. I do think inside the building, and you talk to a lot of people around the NFL, and I think it's very cutthroat and very
Mm.
competitive and very drama filled in the Eagles building for a long period of time. And that's not necessarily a negative because, like you said, I do think there's a good argument that they are actually the gold standard of the NFL, which is something they said back in the day in Jeffrey Lurie's early days, and everyone made fun of them because they hadn't won a Super Bowl. And now it's like, it actually probably is true that most organizations would switch places with them. It's been a run of unprecedented success. The last 5 years has been the most successful run in Eagles history, certainly in my lifetime. But yeah, I think kind of inside when things don't go well, it's not like just media and fans. It's like they had AJ Brown forced to trade even given the unprecedented success. They're going through offensive coordinators every year, given the unprecedented success. Vic Fangio was like, wait, is Vic Fangio going to retire this offseason? Even though he's the best, maybe the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. So it's a lot of that stuff that's going on, but the results are without question among the best in the league.
The one thing I'll say is, you mentioned how cutthroat it is. I think that it's very simple. Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lloyd believe they give you the best roster every year, and the tax you pay on that, whoever you are, is that you're on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Whether you're the
Yes.
coach, the OC, towel boy, doesn't matter. You're on the hot seat because
Yeah.
they're spending and they're giving you this roster. And by the way, if they didn't get the best roster, then Howie would be on the hot seat. That's just how it goes. I just think that there's really high standards there. I don't know. I just feel like nationally, we're trying to look. I think this is what's funny is I think we're going to end up having the top 5 roster. We're going to stay in top 5. Okay. This seems like a very obvious season to me. And yet, we're looking for reasons to talk about teams other than the Eagles, other than the Seahawks. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are going to be teams.
Yeah.
I think the Rams are going to be going to be my number one. But it seems like everybody's looking for a reason that the top teams aren't going to win this year, and I think it's a very top heavy year. The AFC, maybe some Cinderella makes Super Bowl but can't win it. 4 of my 5 are going to be from the NFC, but whatever. Let's keep going here. The Eagles are my number 2. My number 3 was the Broncos.
Okay,
and
they're my number 2.
They're okay, beautiful. Yeah. Unbelievable how much, and this makes me feel better because, as I said, you know ball more than any other media member. But I want to go through the Broncos here. So if the Broncos, and let me put it this way: who's the worst quarterback the Broncos could have, Sheil, where you would have them winning the Super Bowl this year?
The worst quarterback where I could still make a case that they would win the Super Bowl this year?
You would say they're going to beat the Rams. Because I don't think most people are saying the Broncos can win the Super Bowl because of Bo Nix, right? I think Bo Nix is underrated, but let's put a pin in that for a second. Who's the quarterback? If Kyler Murray were the quarterback of the Denver Broncos, do you think they would beat the Rams in the Super Bowl or could beat the Rams in the Super Bowl?
I think that's probably the answer. Kyler Murray. Yeah, I think that's a good one. I don't know where people. I mean, Baker Mayfield, I think, is better than Kyler Murray. I don't know if you do or not.
Higher floor.
But yeah, I would certainly pick him. Yeah, I'm kind of going through here, and I think he probably is the pick because Kyler Murray in a given season is, on average like the 17th best quarterback or something like that. Just when you look at it statistically, and I think if he were in that situation with the offensive line, with the wide receivers, with the defense, with the secondary, with the pass rush. I mean, it really has been a remarkable rebuild from where they were when Sean Payton first got there. I joked earlier that he has the biggest ego of any, coach in the last 25 years. And I do say that every summer while still making sure I point out that, like, I think he's unbelievable at his job. I think, I kind of understand why he's got an ego that big. So, yeah, I think Kyler Murray is probably the answer.
All right, let's go through this roster. Jaylen Waddle only adds to it. I felt like I don't know how you felt about it, but I felt like the Jaylen Waddle trade was a signal from Sean Payton that the AFC was wide open and that this was the year to go for it. And this is the year to trade a first-round pick for a guy like Jaylen Waddle. You don't do that. If there was a Rams in the NFC, you kind of go, I don't know. Like, maybe we don't go all in on this year. Maybe let's see if Myles Garrett gets hurt next year or something like that. But I think that they think they can make the Super Bowl. And they would have made the Super Bowl if Bo Nix was healthy last year. But even considering everything, even with the Ravens having a new coaching staff, the Bills having a new coaching staff, everybody being improved, the Chargers are going to be improved as long as they have a healthy offensive line. Although I just saw some injury news there in the last 30 minutes. I do feel like the Broncos think that this is their year. I tend to believe them, although I do think the Bengals are on that kind of level. But premium talent on this team, Waddle, the offensive line as a whole is just unbelievable.
Best O-line of football, probably.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. Zach Allen, his pressure numbers were unbelievable last year. Nick Bonito, Patrick Surtain, we know already. Even guys, the second layer of guys like Hufanga can play. It's a really well-made roster, and it's not a surprise to see this in what, year 3 or year 4 for Sean Payton?
I can't remember. There was the one
Year
Russ
3,
year
year 4.
and
The year they
year
lost
4, right?
by
Yeah.
70 points to the Dolphins was how long
Oh
ago?
my gosh, I forgot about that. But, yeah, I think that offensively, if I have this right, they had 15 guys who played 300 snaps last year, and all 15 are back, and they added Jaylen Waddle to that group. It's like unprecedented continuity for an offense in the NFL. And I'm not saying their offense was like unbelievable last year, but it was pretty good. And there's a chance that it makes the leap to really good this year, given the talent. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the secondary group might be, the corners might be the best corner group in football. If not, it's certainly top 5. My only concern, they were so good at getting after the quarterback last year. They lose John Franklin Myers, which, that's not like losing Myles Garrett. I understand. They lost that, and then you have this potential Jonathan Cooper suspension, where I think if you take both those things and it ends up being a big suspension for Jonathan Cooper, I'm going to wonder a little bit. I don't think it's going to knock them out and they're the 20th ranked defense, but it could make them like the 10th ranked defense instead of the top 5 defense. So that's the only thing I kind of looked at. But man, yeah, there are just good players all over the place. And I know you've been a proponent for a long time, as I have. Just kind of look at O-line and pass rush. And then, that's probably going to be a team that has a chance to win a lot of games. And I think they have that for sure this year.
Daniel Jeremiah said it on the show years ago, I think about all the time. And really, really, really hard to be a bad team with good lines. And
yeah,
that is why the Cleveland Browns are so impressive the last 15 years, because they've had some good lines and it just hasn't worked. Just hasn't worked.
Yeah.
They've been
Outlier,
a quarterback away. They've been, yeah, there you go. Special team, special franchise. I want to hit you with a hot take.
Okay.
And I want you to respond. I don't think nationally there is enough respect given to the fact the Eagles are significantly closer to the Rams in overall roster talent than we think. I don't think it's a massive blowout when you compare the two teams. Quarterback is better, and then Myles Garrett is better. So they have the 2 best players.
Yeah.
As far as the position goes. And then I think it gets very, very, very even. And in some positions, I would give the Eagles the credit.
Puka Nacua.
This is not with Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is not returned in this scenario.
Yeah. I would give Puka, I think the thing about the Rams is in any given year with this roster, they could have the best quarterback, the best wide receiver, and the best defensive player. I think that's why we have them so high. It doesn't mean that Matthew Stafford would be number 1 on our list. I would still have Josh Allen and maybe some others above him, but in any given year, he can perform like the best quarterback. Puka Nacua, I think might be, if he's not 1, he's 2 or 3 in terms of wide receiver, and then Myles Garrett. But to your point, Eagles on paper, better offensive line, better running back. The front, I would still give the Rams the edge because I think they have a lot of good players around Myles Garrett, and he's such a force multiplier.
Secondary
Close. Is Eagles. I would give the Eagles the edge.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you. I'm the one who had the take, but Trent McDuffie's made it very close.
The Eagles the edge. Yeah, off ball. So yeah, I think it is close. I mean, it is a little top heavy with the Rams, where they probably can't withstand, maybe a key injury to one of those guys as well as the Eagles might be able to.
First of all, I'm with you. I think there is probably a discounting of how many young guys they have in Los Angeles that were there before they started making all these moves. And you guys have like Braden Fisk and Kobe Turner and Byron Young and all that stuff. So there's depth there behind Myles Garrett. But I'm with you. If both teams get banged up, the Eagles have the advantage. Now, there could be a case you made that if both teams get banged up, they're screwed, so who cares anyway. The Eagles have more pivots available to them as far as roster talent goes. And so I just want to throw that out there. All right, so I assume we both have the Rams number 1.
Yeah, we both have the Rams number 1.
Let's go through it. Why are the Rams number 1? And also, where did they rank as far as your top offenses and top defenses?
Yeah, I just think it's the star power. And then it's the additions they made in the secondary this offseason, in addition to Myles Garrett. We don't even mention that they traded for Trent McDuffie because it's that's not that exciting when you think about Myles Garrett. They signed Jaylen Watson. So it's kind of like if you were just playing Madden or something and you're like, what part of my team sucked last year? Let me just go get really good players at those positions. That's like what they did. Now they gave up future draft capital, and there's no guarantee that it's going to work. But I looked at it, and they just have, like you mentioned, they were what, top 5 in like pressure and sack rate last year without Myles Garrett. It's not like they had a bad defense last year. It faltered a little bit in the second half, but they're certainly in the top 5. So I think I had the Rams top 5 in both offensive rankings and defensive
Is that the
rankings,
only
and
team you had that?
I think they're the only team in the NFL that made my top 5 for both of those. So that when you were explaining the exercise to me, I'm like, let me go take a look at this. And I'm like, all right, that should make my decision easy if they're top 5 on both sides of the ball.
I have a stupid question for you. So we did this
Yeah.
big debate on TV yesterday, me and Dan Orlovsky, about the most talented contenders without their quarterbacks. We focused on the AFC: Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Bengals. Taking away those quarterbacks, who do you think has the most talented roster?
Chiefs, Bills.
It's the elite quarterbacks that we talk about every single year, right?
I gotcha. Okay.
Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, and Jackson.
Man, that's pretty interesting.
Because I said it was the Bengals, and Orlovsky said it was the Bills.
I was kind of leaning Ravens, maybe, but I don't know that I love that. Like, I'm looking at their
no
offense.
pass rush unless Matt
No,
comes
I don't
back
like
and
their
it's
line. No,
full
it's
go.
not the Ravens. The Bills. All right, so I think there's a strong case for the Bills because you have the offensive line that's really good, and the kind of pass catchers are good enough. The defense, you're really struggling to find great players there. The Bengals, to your point, great wide receivers, but other than that, who are we looking
Dexter
at on the
Lawrence.
Bengals? Okay. DJ Turner, maybe.
DJ
Good
Turner.
player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Brian Cook, solid.
Yeah.
Solid Brian Cook. Owe is there.
Okay.
But they've got, Jamar Chase and Higgins are the best wide receiver duo. Chase Brown.
Yeah.
Chase Brown.
Good player.
But so there's a lot of good players there.
I think
That's
I go
where I'm at with
Bills.
them.
I think I go Bills now that I'm thinking about it more. I like the case for the Bengals. I don't think it's the Chiefs. I don't think it's the Ravens now that I've talked myself out of it. I think just having, and you could make, I guess if you like the Chiefs offensive line or think they're going to be really good this year, you could make the case there. I think I would land on the Bills mostly because I think their offensive line, if they're healthy, that's like a top 5 unit. And that goes a long way to what we discussed earlier.
Hey, buddy. I appreciated you doing this. This is great.
All right. Good to see you, my friend. Talk soon.
Good to see you. Ring Around NFL Show, Philly special. That's my buddy, Sheil Kapadia. Thank you, buddy.
See you soon.